job with more pay than you're okay. Money, it's a gas. Grab that cash with both hands, then make a stash.
Oh, I'm having a tough day today. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't really want to come to work today. I'm not going to lie. One thing I won't ever do is lie to you often. Okay, if you're a guest, tune back in. Come on back home with us. Great to have you here. Inside your program, if you are a guest, is my cell phone number. Text me if you'd like to get together, have coffee, have whiskey, have breakfast, whatever it might be. I'd love to meet you, answer any questions you might have about our faith community, how and ways in which we talk about faith, being a peacemaker in our world, all that good stuff. So please do that. I was able to have a couple of appointments, a couple of coffees this week, so it was really great to get to meet some of you a little bit better. Okay, so we're going to play our favorite game. How many of you remember this game from last week? Win Ryan's money. Anybody remember this one? All right. Where is Bethany at? Bethany Ramos. Bethany, come on. What's your last name? Okay, Bethany. Give Bethany a great big hand. All right. We're gonna put Lindsay right in the middle of us. Bethany, you filled out your Connect card last week, and in our random drawing, you have won the opportunity to win my money, okay? So, Bethany, first thing you're gonna do is give the wheel of money here a nice big spin. You just give it a big spin. There it is. How much? $20, okay. All right, Bethany, this is your chance to win $20. Your question will be up on the screen, and here it is, all right? Here it is. In 2024, Debt.com did a survey of Americans, and they asked whether they budgeted their money or not. What percentage of Americans surveyed reported that they budgeted their money? Is it 30%, 60%, or 90%? And you can feel free to ask the audience, but it's been my experience, they don't know what they're talking about. So I'm just kidding. It's a joke. 30, 60, or 90?
Wow, you really believe in the responsibility.
What do you think? We're playing for a hot...
I'll go with the audience and go with
90%. 90%. Well, Bethany, I am sad to say that you're taking my $20 today. Give Bethany a great big hand. Bethany, you're absolutely correct. Give her a big hand. That roughly, the survey told us, 90% of Americans said that they budget. How many of you budget? Raise your hand up nice and high. How many of you put a budget in place, don't follow it? Raise your hand up nice and high. Come on, let's be honest. Just right. And the study actually said that this is trending upward. Like since 2018, as they do these surveys, that more and more people, the majority of the people that are surveyed are actually budgeting. And they're doing that to get out of debt and to keep them going into debt, right? Budgeting. Now, let me ask you this question. If you are a budgeter, be honest, raise your hand nice and high, that over the history of your financial management life, for your personal finances, you have tried at least 3 different budgeting tools. Like you went down one path and then you stopped doing it and you went down another one, raise your hand up, you tried the envelopes, you did all the different things, whatever it might be. How many of you have done at least 5 different budgeting techniques, 5 different spreadsheets? 10, anybody done 10 in the right? Right, we do this, right? It's true. Like we'll set down one course, we get all excited about it, we'll jump into it. Now, here's the question. I think most of us would, if we're honest, say we have tried. Like we want to have financial peace in our lives. We want to have a sense of stability. So we try these different things. But why is it that a lot of times they just don't last? Why is it that they don't stick around? Why is it that they seem to fail? Is it because maybe we just don't have enough money? Is it because there's a bill that shows up that we weren't expecting, a layoff, some sort of negative, adverse experience in our lives that's detrimental? Maybe there's some unnecessary spending that goes on in our lives every now and then, right? An impulse buy of sorts. How many of you have never experienced buyer's remorse in your life? Raise your like, buyer's remorse, what is that? We call that therapy, right? Why is that? Why is it that we can kind of feel like we make a couple of steps forward and then maybe we do like 5 steps backwards in our personal finances? Like, what is the missing ingredient? Well, it could be that those things happen, certainly. But the truth is, everybody in this world has unexpected financial things that occur. Like we could do a survey in here and every one of us in this room, regardless of how healthy our finances are, could say, yeah, I had a really major unexpected event in my life that really impacted my finances. So it's not just simply something bad happens or something unforeseen happens, right? Or that we spend on something we shouldn't. Like all of us could say those are things that we've done. But I think maybe underneath much of how it happens, right? Underneath these things that happen in our lives, that we're missing something, right? We choose a way to budget. We choose a way to manage our personal finances. We choose a way to kind of live this out, to make sure that there's more money than month. You know what I mean? But maybe we don't have long-term success because we're missing something under the surface. And I think what we're missing under the surface is oftentimes we lack purpose in our finances. We really don't have an understanding of why it is that we're doing this. We lack a sense of purpose. Like oftentimes the purpose that we have is just not very convincing. It's, I just need to pay the bills, right? That's the purpose, right? It's, I did it again. Like we ended up with more bills than we had money. Like we did it again. We went out to eat. We should have. Whatever it might be, oftentimes we lack this idea of purpose. And inside of purpose is this idea of a long-term vision for our finances. A lot of times we are stuck in the very short term, like how do I make this bill work inside of how can we get to this, even short term meaning like 6 months or a year from now. And when we don't have that long-term vision, when we don't have a deep sense of purpose in our finances, we are going to create a budget that at the end of the day, oftentimes isn't in alignment with the core values of our lives. Because maybe we haven't even thought about what are the core values of our lives. And how do those core values like relate to my finances? And so at the end of the day, what we're missing is the wisdom that's found in a really good why. There's so much wisdom. That's one of our core values here in the life of our church, is to be a people of wisdom. And there's so much wisdom to be lived into and discovered with a powerful why. See, why is really about having a vision for the future. And it's about having a vision that's far more powerful and far more motivating than the temptations and the trials of the present moment. Right? Those are two kind of like nice churchy words for you, temptation and trials. But how many of you have ever been tempted to spend what you don't have? How many of you have gone beyond tempted? Guilty. Right? I mean, we have these temptations and we have those things that we want, we can't, and then we fall, oh gosh. And they're powerful and they motivate us, like the emotion of it. And then we have trials that we go through that really have nothing to do with anything that we do or don't do. It's just kind of life happens to us. But a really powerful why can help empower us in the moments where we feel deeply tempted to make an unwise decision, to give into the temporary feeling of bliss that will come, or to help us, and we can be empowered by a why in those moments where we feel like we're being overwhelmed by just the reality of life. And our scripture, our sacred text, the things that have been handed to us by our spiritual ancestors, they really do offer a lot of wisdom as it comes to this idea of the why. There's a really famous proverb that maybe you've heard, Proverbs 29:18. Proverbs 29:18 says, "Where there is no prophecy, the people cast off restraint, but happy are those who keep the law." Now, you might have heard this particular translation, which is the New Revised Standard Version, the updated edition, uses the word prophecy, but it's often translated as vision or revelation, okay? Where there is no vision, right? or where there is no revelation, the people languish, the people flounder, or maybe you've even heard it translated, the people perish. Right? And the idea behind this word is not, oh, well, there's like, where there's no prophetic word or where there's no vision where like you're being told exactly what God is going to do. Your person, no, that's not what is happening. Like the idea of the prophetic, the idea of vision is a word of truth about what could be. It's a word of truth about what could be. The classical prophets that we have that are found in what we would call the Old Testament or the Hebrew Bible, that they're oftentimes talking about this is what's going to happen to the people, right? And they're speaking in language of judgment and they're speaking in language of the detriment of what's going to happen because of certain things that are taking place. When the prophetic voice speaks, it's not speaking an absolute truth of what will be. The prophetic voice is speaking an understanding of what could be if things don't change. They're offering a vision, and sometimes that vision is one of judgment, and sometimes that vision is one of destruction, and like, hey, we are headed down a path, right? So there was no such thing as separation of church and state. In fact, there really weren't modern nation states 2,500 years ago, 3,000 years ago when these texts are being formulated, right? Some of them. Right? There was just a way of being. And so there was this understanding that, hey, if we fall away from principles that ground us and that form us into a community, this community will fail. And so the prophetic voice is offering wisdom and a vision that says, hey, this is what will happen if we go down this path, but we can go down this path. We can change. We can bring justice into our way of being. We can bring the care of the poor into our way of being. But if we neglect certain things, then we'll find ourselves in peril. And so that's what's amazing about prophetic writings is that they're actually contingent upon our actions. It's not something that the prophets were saying, this is going to happen, it has to happen. They're saying, this is a realistic possibility. Like how many of y'all know if you go out and you max out all your credit cards, there's a realistic possibility you're going to need a bankruptcy attorney. That's just the truth of it. Regardless of why you max them out, like I'm not offering judgment on that, you doing that. Maybe you did that for very good reasons, whatever. But the truth is, there's a prophetic vision there, right? This could happen. How many of y'all know that if you set up a savings plan and you were to, from the moment you like got your very first job, that you said, hey, I'm going to save 4%, and you do that over 30 years, there's a high likelihood that you are going to retire with a fair amount of money. Right? These are prophetic words. There's nothing mystical about them. They're insightful. They're grounded in empirical data most of the time. And that's the beauty of it, right? And so the classical prophets and some wisdom that we should gain from things like this is that there is such thing as human agency. You actually have a say in your future. And so vision, revelation, the prophetic word, whatever word you want to use for it, it offers us something very powerful. It offers us focus, right? If it says, where there is no vision, the people throw off restraint, right? Where there is no why, it's like, whatever. You can have a strong why, or you can have a lot of whatever. And how many of you know a lot of whatever leads you to a place of confusion, disappointment? But focus can save us from a lot of pain. And in the world of personal finance, focus, right, restraint can save us from a really important fallacy that exists out there. And oftentimes you'll hear this fallacy called as the next shiny thing. A powerful vision will put in perspective whatever we think is the next shiny thing. And in our finances, the next shiny thing is usually something that will cost us money, right? In our families, sometimes the next shiny thing can cost us our time. But in the world of finance, there's always something that our world, that the places in which we go and the television shows we watch and the advertisements that hit us, there's always a next shiny thing. And without a powerful why I will be better without the next shiny thing, we'll always think that the next shiny thing will make us better. We do this in relationships, we do this in our finances, we do this in our work, everywhere. It's a major fallacy that holds us back from longevity, that holds us back from success. And so a really powerful why, a prophetic word for your finances will help protect you from that next shiny thing. Now, a couple of weeks ago when we introduced this series, I read this passage, this statement from Jesus. In Luke chapter 14, verse 28, Jesus says this, which of you intending to build a tower, keyword intending to build a tower, does not first sit down, estimate the cost to see whether he has enough to complete it? Okay, Jesus is giving us a pretty duh moment, okay? If you're going to sit down and build a tower, if that's your intention, you're going to pause and think through it, right? Now, here's what I want you to understand. Vision will lead to clarity of intention. Vision will lead to clarity of intention. The why will speak to the power and the clarity of your intentions. Jesus said, if you're intending to build a tower. Now, the tower is the what, okay? Now, if the intention is to build a tower, right, it's not to just build something. The intention isn't to build something. The intention is to build a tower, right? A builder doesn't wake up one day. How many builders do we have in the room? Raise your hand nice and high. You're in the trade construction, builders. How does this work? Do you just wake up and go, you know what? Let's build something today. Let's head down to Home Depot and let's just see where the Spirit leads us. We'll fill up the cart. We'll grab some wood. We'll grab some screws, and we'll just go for it. It'll be fun. Anybody? No, right? I mean, the what flows out of the intention, right? We don't just willy-nilly. And so the what is very important, right? In this statement, Jesus, the what is the tower. But what Jesus doesn't address, which I think is okay, because that's not really the point of it, but what I want to drive home is the why behind the what. Right? The why behind the tower is even more important. Like, why are you building a tower in the first place? Right? If you're a builder, right? If you're in the trades, you're like, well, we're going to put a floor down today. Well, why are we going to do that? Or we're going to build a house. Why are we going to build a house? So think about it in Jesus' day. He says this, I'm going to build a tower. Like, why would you build a tower? Are you bored? Hey, let's just go build a tower. I mean, Jesus is talking to impoverished people who have no wealth. They're going to build a tower. Why would you build a tower? You'd build a tower because you probably felt the sense of vulnerability, that you wanted, there was an impending enemy. You needed a stronghold. You needed to keep your city safe from harm, so you would build a tower. And that why, the safety of your citizenry, the safety of your community, right, the impending enemy, that why will motivate you in the moment where building the tower gets really old, gets really frustrating. And so as we kind of think about our values and our personal finances, here's what I don't want us to miss today, is that a powerful why, it grounds, it guides, and it galvanizes. Look at that, 3 G's. I'm trying to be a good preacher for you, okay? A powerful why will ground us in something deep and meaningful, right? It will make sure that the decisions that we make are in alignment with something that we find extraordinary. And so it guides us. We're faced with 2 choices. Which one are we going to make? Well, let's go to our why. Why are we doing this? Right? It will ground us in something that is meaningful. I don't think that it's enough to just say, well, my big why is I don't want to have debt. Or my big why is I want to have X amount of dollars in the bank. Those seem arbitrary and not meaningful. But my why is I don't want to have any debt because I want to be a generous person and help meet the needs of others. Right? That's a huge why that could exist. Or I don't want to have any debt because I want to travel around the world. Right? If you're more like me and selfish. Just kidding. Right? Whatever the why is, like, it's not just enough to have a goal. You got to understand that why. So that can guide the decisions, right? Can help us avoid those distractions, the next shiny new thing. Right? That's the beauty of it. And it galvanizes us. Why is inspiring? Why is motivating? Why tells us to take action, to keep moving forward when we face those setbacks. Simon Sinek wrote a book called The Power of Why, or Start With Why. How many have ever read this book, heard of this book? Anybody heard of Simon Sinek, right? So he writes this book, Start With Why, and he gives this really powerful, very simple framework for how to navigate the why in our lives. And he talks about something called the golden circles. And so in your mind, you have to imagine 3 concentric circles, okay? And the first circle, the most important circle, is the why. That's the vision. The next circle outside of that is the process, right? It's the what, or it's the how, excuse me. It's the how you're going to accomplish this. And then the what, the result, is the last thing. Now, oftentimes, we don't start with the why, but this framework can be applied to our lives in lots of ways. Our career goals, it can be applied to the framework of our organizations, our families, and our finances. It's applied to the life of our church. So think about Crossroads. You are Crossroads, by the way. Granted, we are a legal entity, and we've got all these rules we follow, but at the end of the day, you and I are Crossroads Church. And we have these three concentric circles. What is our big why? Why do we exist? Not necessarily why do we exist to do certain things, which that's part of it, but why do we exist? And we would say that we exist right now in this time. We would articulate it because acceptable beliefs and behaviors create unacceptable truths that lead to suffering and destroy peace on earth. That's why we exist. And we see the framework of our spirituality as addressing that core issue. The peace is destroyed because there are acceptable beliefs that promote unacceptable behavior and unacceptable beliefs that produce suffering in our world. And so we're here to address those. We're here to have a spirituality that guides us. And so how are we going to do this? How are we going to create peace on earth and participate in that? Well, we're going to be guided by our values. What are those values that we hold and we talk about a lot? Wisdom, generosity, inclusion, creativity, and fun. And we invite and we equip and we inspire people to be everyday normal peacemakers. And through partnerships and education and healthy spirituality that's built on the peacemaking path of Jesus. That's the what, but that's not the why. The why is because people are suffering in our world and people are scared. And there are acceptable beliefs and behaviors that promote that. And so what we're going to do is intersect those. Now, what are going to be the results? What is going to be the results? Well, we talk about this all the time. We're going to replace spiritual emptiness with spiritual vitality. We're going to replace fear of the other with inclusion. We're going to replace illiteracy with education and opportunity. We're going to replace poverty with physical and financial flourishing. We're going to replace human trafficking with freedom. Right? That's that third circle. That's what happens. How we do it is through our partnerships, through our education, right? Through gathering like this. And why we do it is because there's so much suffering in our world and there's so many acceptable beliefs and behaviors that produce unacceptable beliefs and behaviors. Now that framework, right? I'm going to tell you right now, I could not come today. I'm just going to be real honest with you. I could not come today and talk about personal finances in the midst of this past week if I didn't have it attached to a bigger why. That my personal finances, at the end of the day, are about me being able to fund and facilitate an expression of Christianity that is counter to the evil that is being perpetuated in the name of Jesus. I couldn't come today and talk about this just as, let's just make sure that everybody has a really great bank account and you sleep better at night and you're invested in good, solid investments. Like those are all wonderful things, but that's not the why. The why is I want to participate in the ending of suffering. That's the why. I'm telling you, I would not be here today without that why. I'd have just been like, run a video. I need a mental health day. And I'm a white male. Give me a break. Heterosexual at that matter too. We don't need mental health days. Let's just be honest. Right? So the why. And so in your everyday normal life, right, when you leave here, 3 things that you can do that can help bring this into your finances. First of all, I'm going to go real quick. Start with your why. Start with your why. As you think about your personal finances, don't jump to what, don't jump to how, start with why. Why is this important to you? Why? Reflect on that deeper purpose behind your financial decisions. What inspires you to give? What inspires you to save? What motivates your spending? And you do this, it's not a difficult thing to do. It's just contrarian to the way of life. Like nobody tells you to do this, right? It's just contrary to our way of thinking. But take 30 minutes this week. Like put it in your calendar, block it off, take 30 minutes with a piece of paper and just journal. Like put the question on top of it. Like, what impact do I want my finance to have on my life and others? And just think about it. Let it flow out and just write it down, cross it out. But just take 15 to 30 minutes and reflect on where you want to be and why. Why does it matter? What impact? And I would encourage you to break it down, break your why into kind of 3 categories. Why do you want to give? Why do you want to give money away? Why is that important to you? Who or what inspires generosity in your life? Think about it in terms of saving. Why is saving important to you? Why has saving not been important to you? Right? What are the dreams, the security, the goals that you're trying to build by saving? And then think about the why behind your spending. What values should your spending reflect? What values do you want them to reflect? Like if you were to look at your registry, I mean, we don't have checkbook registries anymore, but like what would it say about your values and your spending? And then come up with a statement, put it into a statement. So like an example would be like, I want my finances to create peace and purpose. And I want to reflect generosity. I want to secure my family's future. And I want to align my spending with what matters most to me. Just write that statement down. Listen, you don't have to go get a tattoo of this, okay? You don't have to get a t-shirt made, post it on your Facebook, but just write it down. And then just put it somewhere visible and revisit it weekly. Okay, so that's it. Start with your why. Second step. Oh man, there's more, Ryan? I know. Define your how. So start with your why, that's that first circle, and then define your how. Right? So why am I building a tower? What's my tower? And then how am I going to build my tower? That's the counting of the cost. How's this going to take place? Right? So think of it that way. Like, I'm building a tower, how's it going to be? Define your how. And one of the things I would encourage you to do is to implement percentage-based budgeting. Percentage-based budgeting is scalable, it's simple, it can present a way of thinking about goals, right? And so it just aligns your spending, your saving, and your giving with your why, and you're saying, okay, what are reasonable percentages that we do so that we can be responsible within our personal household structure, right? So you look at your current income, all those areas that it comes from, forget about what your expenses are, and just decide, where do I want to be? What do I want my percentage goals to be? Kind of a thing that gets thrown out there a lot would be, I'm going to spend 70%. That's my goal. Spend 70%, save 20%, I'm going to give away 10%. And I'm not saying give away 10% to the church, okay? You're welcome to do that. I'm not going to stop you. But that's not what I'm saying here. I'm saying set aside what percentage you think you want to give as a starting point, okay? So what percentage would that look like for you? Now, maybe 70, 20, 10, you're like, I'm at like 110, -5, and -20 right now. Like I actually took money out of the donation box on the way out today. Thank you very much. I owe you, right? You're actually like, I made a pledge, no idea how I'm going to give it, so I'm negative in my giving category right now, right? That's okay? Set your goal, right? I want to be at 10%. I'm not there. I want to be at only spending 70% on my expenses. And you say, well, if that's my goal and I'm at 90 right now, as my income changes, what decisions could I make in my life to, over the next year, get down to 85? And then next year I can be at 80. And then next year I could be at 75. And then next year I could be at 70. And then maybe next year I could be at 60. Right? You see, so it presents this beautiful opportunity to just make some goals, right? And so don't get overwhelmed by starting at some random percentage that I give out. Think through your own life. And then use a practical tool for that. Get a budgeting app on your phone, make a spreadsheet, right? There's great tools like You Need a Budget or Mint, right? Use some of those things. I would recommend not using Dave Ramsey, but that's just me personally, right? You do you, okay? There's lots of great tools out there. I know, I just said that, and I don't think I'm allowed to say that as a pastor in America, but I did. Okay. And then I want to encourage you just to commit. Some of you are so angry right now. What did he say? Take a breath. Take a breath. Okay. I would just encourage you to try this for 90 days, just to give it a good go. Like 90 days. This is wisdom, okay? And then finally, right, so you start with why, You kind of define your how, and then I want to encourage you to live your why. Live into this, right? Revisit and adjust this regularly, right? Do you know that your family is a little organization? Do you know that? There's a really great book called The 3 Big Questions of a Frantic Family, written by Patrick Lencioni. How many have heard of Patrick Lencioni? Anybody, right? If you've spent time in like leadership development, he's like the Dave Ramsey of leadership development. Oh, I'm going to get fired. Okay, listen. He wrote this great book, and basically the premise of this book, it starts with a fable, and it's like this spouse, and I forget exactly how it's gendered, but like the spouse is saying, hey, if you ran your business like you run our family, you'd be out of business in a year. Like you think about your family, right? I mean, you have activities, you have expenses, you have income, everything that an organization has. But oftentimes we don't have a vision. We don't have a guide. It's a great book, by the way, if you ever want to check it out for your family. What are the 3 big questions of a frantic family to help kind of bring purpose and meaning? Okay, so revisit it regularly. So I bring up that point because part of that book and the wisdom that he talks about is like having this clearly laid out and having these meetings with the family, right? You got to have board meetings. You got to bring the family together and talk about this. And maybe you're the chief financial officer of your family. And maybe your partner, your spouse is the chief fun officer. But you better bring the fun officer and the financial officer together, okay? Or ain't nobody gonna be happy, right? And so you bring the family together, right? And you live into this, because it's not a set it and forget it. I wish it was. It's just not a set it and forget it. So you gotta revisit your why. You gotta adjust your plan. And you do that because, I don't know if you know this or not, but life happens. Life changes. If anything this week has taught us, life changes. And if when life changes, if we don't change our values, or not our values, but if we don't live into our values, and if we don't change our priorities with it, we won't recognize ourselves. So you have to be ready to adjust. It's important to do that. So I want to encourage you, schedule a monthly or a quarterly team meeting. Bring everybody together, do the check-in. Where are we on our goals? This foolishness of don't talk to your kids about how much is in your bank account or your money, all that does is create some weird like aura around finances. Like inspire your children, inspire one another. Speak it out loud. I grew up in an environment that the favorite phrase was, we don't have any money. And I learned in my own life that with my own children, I wanted to use different language. I wanted to use language like, we choose not to use our money for that. Like my kids would ask me, can I get this toy? I would say no. They say, why? I said, they would say, well, you don't have money for it? I said, no, I got plenty. I have a lot of money. Because in the mind of a child, how much I have would have been a lot. I was like, I have so much money. There's not a thing in this store, in this aisle at least, that I couldn't buy right now. Bam. But we make purposeful decisions with that money. And there comes a point in time in your life where your kids are old enough to handle some of those things and they can motivate them and inspire them. So bring everybody together and ask the question, are we living into our financial why? Maybe part of your financial why is for your children's financial health later on, beyond you. Have those conversations. Live in a space of openness. Ask the question, am I giving? Am I saving? Am I spending? Are we doing these things in alignment with our vision? And if not, what adjustments should we make together? And then last week, we spent a whole time talking about the importance of share your financial why with somebody. Share it with somebody, right? And I do think that this crazy way of thinking about finances and aligning it with a big why, I think it does make us better people. I think it does make the world a better place, because if we start with the why in our personal finances, it can transform the whole experience from a source of stress to a tool for purpose and meaning and fulfillment. And if we share the why with our children, their why can be different than yours, by the way. It should, psychologically speaking. It's healthy for your children to develop their own why. When you stunt that why, it causes all kinds of problems. But it will train your children to the importance of having a why. And their why can be different than yours. You might even disagree. You might say, that is the dumbest why I've ever heard. But hey, if it works for you. I mean, I'm prone to say stuff like that to my kids. That makes no sense to me. They're young adults now, 21, and you're like, I have no idea what you're thinking right now. But you do you, and I'm with you. If that's where your goal is, and that's where, then I'm on team you. And guess what? If they screw up and mess up, I want them to know that I'm on team them. I'm with them. Right? So their why may change, may not work out. I may see it ahead and have offered wisdom. You can ignore it. But my love for them, my presence with them isn't based on them making sure that they fulfill my why for them or whatever it might be. But I want them to have a why. And so when we plan out, when we write out our vision, when we implement things like percentage-based planning, when we regularly revisit the why, we move closer to a life of financial wisdom and fulfillment. And here's the thing, and this is really tricky, and this is something that's really hard for me because I want to move quick and I want everything to happen fast. But what I'm learning and what I've learned is that you got to think the long game in this, right? And we can't get discouraged by it not happening overnight. You know, we unfortunately live in a world that's filled with lottery tickets and get rich quick and this will fix my problem tomorrow. It just doesn't work that way. It's just small steps in the same direction over and over. It's the next best decision, the next best choice. So we're going to have communion together. What is it that God's inviting you into today? I hope there's 3 things that you sense being invited into today, no matter how old you are, no matter where you are in your financial journey, whether you are a high school student, a college student, whether you're on your 3rd marriage, whether you are 90 years old. I hope that you'll sense this, that I'm actually going to do it. I'm going to take this as homework. I'm going to write out my financial statement. I'm going to start with why. Maybe you have a good why, but you haven't revisited, or you haven't written down the how yet. Maybe you're not doing percentage-based budgeting. You go, I'm going to check that. What percentage am I at? Where do I want to be? So you'll define your how. Maybe you've done those things, but it's been a while. Maybe you've been in a situation where you just don't have to worry about how much money's coming in or going out, so you haven't had to be super intentional about it, right? That old adage, you can, I'm not even going to say it, okay? It'll get me in trouble. But you haven't had to think about your how. It's just there's enough money. You don't have to worry about the balance. But maybe there's this sense of, but maybe I could be more intentional and I can find more meaning and purpose and joy. And so maybe you just need to revisit and adjust those things. Now, if you want to do that, we've created a little worksheet for you. It's inside your app first, if you want to go there with the talk notes for today. There's a series of questions that can guide you through this exercise. Or if you, on your way out today, I believe on the tables, there'll be some printed worksheets if you want to take that. And don't freak out. It's 4 pages. Don't freak. There's space for you to write on it. People look at me like, oh my gosh, what does this guy think? I've got time in the world, right? So check that. That's there and available for you to get really practical. Our communion song today, I think, is an important song for this moment in our lives, whether it be around our finances or whether it be around our culture and what does it mean to follow Jesus in the midst of a world that is changing. A definition of faith that is changing. And this song really talks about the temptation that we have to stay in a place of safety. The temptation that we have to just stay in our nestled cocoon of faith, of church. But it speaks to this idea that what we hold dear here at Crossroads is that the life of faith is unfortunately a life that calls us into the darkness and into the pain and into the hurt. And so we could just sit here and be safe. We absolutely could do that. And we could have made some decisions 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, 12 years ago that would have been safer for this community financially, that would have been safer for this community attendance-wise. But Crossroads has always made choices, always has made choices to be moving with the Spirit of God towards the hurting. And that takes us out of our comfort zone, and it transforms us. And so there's a lyric in this song today that I'd love for you to just think about. And it says, I could hold on. I could hold on to who I am and never let you change me from the inside. What I've learned in the last 10 years of my spiritual journey is that it would be really easy for me, my demographic, my background, my experience, my education, my sexuality, my status as a citizen, all of these things, I could just hold on to them and be just fine. In fact, I'd probably do pretty well. I could have stayed in an environment that I was in professionally, had a great track, was headed for the stars. But I want to be changed, and I want to be transformed today. And I want to always be changed, and I want to be humbled by truth. And in doing that, I want to own the mistakes that I've made. I want to own the ways in which I perpetuated unhealthy spirituality so that I can be changed. And that, to me, is what the Spirit of God does in our lives if we humble ourselves. So that's what this song speaks to as we have communion today. And maybe there's a humbling that has to take place in our lives financially. Maybe we have to get out of a comfort zone in one area. I don't know. You all are smart people. You live open-hearted. You can ask the question, God, what are you inviting me into today? And I believe you'll sense what that is. So I want to invite you to stand as we sing this song. We're going to sing 2 songs together, and I invite you to the tables. Everyone is welcome here. We state this very clearly on the back of our program. Every place else, that we are committed to the health and safety of every person in our community, because that's the gospel, and we are committed to that. And so every person in our community is welcome at these tables and is welcome in this place, regardless of gender identity, sexual orientation, immigration status, faith perspective. You are welcome here, and you are welcome at these tables. And you are welcome to hold opinions that are different than the people around you, because what binds us together is a love for everyone. And we can explore all those things, and that's wonderful. The body of Christ broken for you and all 8 billion people on this planet that never had any borders until humans got involved. And we ought to remember that as people that think beyond this world. The body of Christ broken for you, the blood of Christ shed for you.